Hey, it's Ed, and I'm here with my friend Erin Osbourn. Erin, welcome to EDTalks.
And it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've always liked each other, see each other at conferences, that sort of thing. But I learned something new the last time we were together. It like blew my mind away. Actually, two things I learned about you that blew my mind away. But before we get into it, introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, I am the Chief Information Officer at Child Mind Institute. It is a New York based nonprofit mental health organization, pediatric mental health. Our mission is to transform kids' lives and help them, support them through their mental health challenges. Some very important mission happening at Child Mind Institute. Go to childmind.org to check out some of the resources that we have in understanding our mission with clinical care, a science team, and education. To really try to move the needle on children's mental health. It is a crisis, and the kids need support. Families need support in so many fashions.
Tell us where you grew up and how you
Yeah.
got to where you are.
Yes, I'm a Midwestern girl. I grew up in Kansas, and so I born and raised. I actually started out right in healthcare, right at the very beginning of my career. Helping patients apply for Medicaid benefits to get their hospital bills paid for. I speak Spanish, and so I was specializing in, let's say, immigrant moms coming in to give birth, and their babies qualified for Medicaid as well as the birth, and really helping being financial counseling and services and then kind of just like really took latch of healthcare. I really liked being part of the hospital workflow and helping folks. And then during my time at the hospital, moved from paper to electronic records, got very interested in that. It helped me enormously in my workflow. And I thought maybe I could put a hand into this electronic health records. And living in Kansas City, I think there was a natural progression to check out Cerner, now Oracle Health, and started a career there and really discovered that, you know what, I'm okay at IT. I have an analytical mind, good at math kind of thing. So it really fit well. And from there, just really took off with the EHR optimization, implementation, came up through project management, started really flexing some more leadership skills. Had moved to New York and recruited to a healthcare system where I eventually became CIO and really rounded out my career, getting a mid-career master's degree in health informatics and building a cybersecurity program, a very robust informatics program, clinical informatics, and then marrying the IT department with all the programming, change management, and governance. So and it's what I'm currently doing now too, building out a more robust governance program, as well as optimizing as much as you can, automation, and just making everyone's life easier with connecting systems and getting data when you need it and injecting into the right workflow. So
Yeah, that's very cool. And Aaron, I have to bring it out because some people are probably curious. So long dominated by men, the CIO role, and you busted through that. Did you think, like, at what point, and were you ever intimidated by it? But at what point did you think, I can do that? I'm just as good as anyone else. Did you have that sort of thinking that kind of led you that way? Or how did that work out for you?
truly, I think towards the beginning, it was more imposter syndrome, but I have had built through my upbringing a sense of confidence. And that confidence really takes you forward in areas of self doubt. And so I have had some baseline to it, but full on imposter syndrome, and really thinking, oh, I need more training. I need this. When are they going to figure it out? But it really was more about self learning and really getting the confidence underneath me. And then also filling gaps in skill set to upskilling. It's just consistently something I do try to work on every day because, there's so much room for improvement. And I think that everyone, can admit that or should admit that there's still a lot out there that you don't know. And the hunger to learn and to be curious is something that's still very much a part of me as well.
Yeah, no, that's good counsel there for males and females. So I know part of that confidence had to come from this bodacious thing you did earlier in life, and was this I call it an adventure. Tell us about this adventure, and then I'll ask you some questions about some lessons learned.
Absolutely. So, this big adventure I went on came mid-career, working tirelessly implementing EHR systems. And I have always been a bit of an adventurer, an explorer. And I decided that I'm going to take a break from working, and I quit my job. I bought a one-way ticket to Mexico City, and I ended up backpacking through Central and South America for about 9 months. I didn't really have a lot planned, but had some things in mind on what to do, what to discover. But lo and behold, it was life altering. This kind of trip just changed everything about my perspective. Growing up in Kansas, there is a limited amount of exposure that you have to the global sense. And then having just really exploring various corners of Latin America, speaking Spanish, and every Spanish speaking country in Latin America has its own flavor, its own vocabulary, its own accent too. So it's like actually relearning the language many times over to be able to connect with the humans along the way, the people I met along the way, and really, the culture, understanding the history, the food, the customs, all of it was so, so invigorating for me, very challenging as well. So that was one of the biggest adventures I've been on. And I think it's still very much a part of me. So many learnings I've had from that trip.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. But before we get there, like, tell us one country or capital, or what, it doesn't have to be a capital, a city that had the biggest impression on you.
Oh my goodness. I think the country of Bolivia was the most surprising for me. I don't know what I had any sort of preconceived notions of what Bolivia was, but it really was. It is an incredible country. So much to offer as far as its history, the culture, the environments are, the climates and environments are very varying and different across the nation. And it truly is an unbeaten path. It's not one of those countries that you could think of Costa Rica and other places that are pretty popular. This is a place to explore and really and understand it from a raw sense. It humbled me so much being in Bolivia, and I really cherish that time. When I think back, that was a tough question. When I think back, it's hard to nail, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. It was very impactful for me.
Did you have like a master plan, or like if you hit Bolivia and it was so interesting, you would stay, hey, I'm going to stay here 3 weeks instead of 1 week. Was it free flowing? Yeah.
It was a bit of a master plan with definitely some flexibility in there, because at times when you land in a spot, I ended up being there for 6 weeks at a time. I was in multiple countries for 6 weeks because there was just so much to explore, or there's a volunteer opportunity. I had a couple of very interesting volunteer opportunities in South America, working with kids in Peru in an after-school program. I also rehabilitated white-fronted capuchin monkeys, albifrons, in the Amazon jungle as a volunteer. Both of those experiences have really impacted me. And again, it was an easy decision to stay longer to be able to do and have that experience. So, and it wasn't just fun. It was work too. Actually very fun and enjoy and fulfilling work. The kind of work that you want to do, you need to do.
Yeah. Erin, this is a Netflix documentary. Yeah, you realize that, and it's a book that I expect to see from you in the next couple of years. Give us a sense of maybe a list of some of the high level learnings, and then we're going to jump into one of your choosing.
Okay. Yes. I mean, many high level learnings, and these are items that I bring into leadership and a team member, being a colleague in my work environment. They show up at home. They show up as a parent, as a friend, as a member of my community. A couple of few qualities that I really learned and solidified on this trip. First and foremost, being uncomfortable and actually being okay with being uncomfortable, right? Because it is not easy on your body. You have the reactions. Now I know that the uncomfortableness is what is growing. Is it propelling you to the next step? And I think a lot of these qualities come back to just being uncomfortable and pushing through that, finding the path through it. Humility was a big one on the trip. I just seeing so many different walks of life. It was a very portion I speak Spanish, I really could interact with the population that I was with and local folks and really understanding them and asking questions. And I mean, that comes into the next one is just being curious, curiosity, the sense of exploration. Again, back to Bolivia, I maybe I had an assumption of what it was. It's okay to clear your narrative and just go in completely blank slate. There's so much to absorb that way when you're curious. Communication and active listening. I'll tell you, it is something else to go to another country doesn't speak your native language, right? Then all of a sudden, you really have to put on your listening skills, right? Active listening. You quiet your narrative. Everything just goes into every single word that's coming out that you really, then you can start to connect. And a couple more, I think just the empathy, that a human to human connection and that muscle being flexed every time coming into new places and connecting with new people. Confidence, again, and I think that's an important topic in leadership and in life, is that self-confidence, the foundation that you need to believe in yourself. You can do hard things. And I think lastly is kind of letting go of control. Acceptance potentially is such a big one because there's so much you cannot control, right? And it's just, you get back to, okay, I'm uncomfortable, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be uncertain for a period of time. That's a good skill to hone when you need to sit in uncomfortable.
This is so rich. Like I said, I want to see the documentary. I want to see the slides. Let me ask you one last question as we close. So if I'm listening and I'm like, that's awesome, Erin, you got this great adventure. You got to take 9 months. I want the same learnings, but I don't have the time or capability to do something so grand. Do you have to go on a big trip, or how else can you get it?
Absolutely not. No, it doesn't take a big trip. It doesn't take this wild adventure. These are things that you can and should reflect on just general daily life, going through the day-to-day of parenting or caregiving and the challenges associated there. We all enter into times of resilience in our life, whether especially around grief and loss.
Yeah.
And we're starting to feel these notions of like uncomfortableness, like empathy that pops up. And it takes a moment to just take a beat and say, you know what, I can and will learn from this. And then on top of it, I'm going to apply it to my life in other aspects, to me as a leader, to me as a community member, to me as a friend, to me as a spouse, to me as, in any way, and you show up to me as yourself, your own self-love. All of this can be achieved in just so many various walks of life. And it's just that a bit of the self-reflection and the self-awareness that brings it into, this is a learning moment for me. This is a moment in which I need to hone in on my active listening. And that's a skill. I maybe need to improve more on my active listening. And then you do so, and then you carry that over into other aspects of your life. So I think it's tangible for everyone. It just takes a bit of the awareness of it, just the understanding that, it starts with maybe a bit of uncomfortableness, and then.
Love it. Erin, you're an amazing human being. Every time I'm with you, I'm like, I just want to hang out more. So I have to figure out a way to come back to New York and spend more time with you. But you're an awesome person, a great leader, a great example for all of us. Thank you for being on EDTalks.
Thank you, Ed. It's my pleasure.